Hey there, I'm Chris, mixing engineer with McAllister Studios, and today we're going to be breaking down the mix for Emmanuel Da Silva's new release, Is Beauty Really Gone? Hey, welcome to the channel. Thanks for joining. Appreciate that you're here. So today we're going to be breaking down the mix for Emmanuel Da Silva's Is Beauty Really Gone, his latest release. So I was approached by Emmanuel a couple of months ago to do this mix, and as soon as I heard it, I was very impressed by the production of it. It's an extremely beautiful, unique, atmospheric piece. So it was a challenge to keep that, but I wanted to keep that in the focus during this mix. And we knew from the beginning that Howie Weinberg, one of the world's most famous mastering engineers with credits such as the Foo Fighters, Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rammstein, he was going to be mastering this piece. So we just had to get that mix to that level where he could take it and make it an unbelievably polished piece. So let's jump in and see how I got the sound for this piece. All right, so let's start breaking down this mix. All right, so you can see here, I have all my effects returns. I have all my tracks for in the band, a lot of electric guitars, bass. The purple tracks that you're going to see here, those were revised tracks that were sent to me later. Usually I would have these all color-coded blue the same, but the purple ones were the revised tracks that he sent to me later. I have several acoustic guitars, synthesizers, strings. We have some vocals. Some tracks I just left out where we decided not to use those ones, but I have the lead and some backgrounds, some vocal effects, a vocoder track, and then we had a drums bus here with all the drums in it. The purple track here was a percussion bus, which I believe I mixed this in a different session. So this is just the stem from that. And then we have all the rest of the drum set here. So it has 71 tracks total, but we didn't use all of them. But let's start from the beginning and start breaking it down. Okay, so right away it starts off very atmospheric. And the big challenge with this piece is that the whole piece is very atmospheric. So we really wanted to keep the space really open so it can breathe. So it starts off with that electric guitar motif, um, which I pan to the right 50% to give it some more space. And then we have another electric guitar coming in right after that, which I pan to the left, again, just to give it that space. And I have um, this electric guitar is getting routed to a room, but these ones I just left the regular effects on. So we had the acoustic guitars coming in here, um, and those I left those centered. And the whole reason why I had those left centered is because it had that panning effect already going on, so I didn't need to pan that at all. And on these, all I had was an EQ, a compressor, and some denoiser. A lot of these tracks came with some noise already on them, so I wanted to get rid of those. So those were the acoustic tracks there. The electrics that I had, same thing. I had a denoiser on them, and then LA3A compressors on the electrics here. But let's keep going. Uh, let's take a look at the drums down here that were coming in. So not a lot going on in the beginning. We had the hi-hats here, which I sent to a room reverb, and all I have there is a high-pass filter in the EQ, panned it a little bit to the left for space. The kick I did not do much with at all. All I did was add a compressor and called it good. I thought it had a great sound as it was. It didn't need to be very apparent. Um, you didn't need it to cut through the mix. You really just wanted to feel it and have its presence there. So here's what the kick sounds like by itself. And that worked. It already had a little bit of reverb sense to it, uh, and that added to the atmosphere of the piece. So I liked that. The snare, I had actually routed out to a plate reverb, and this one had a little bit more to it. I had an EQ with a high pass on it. I used the Kramer HLS channel strip, and I was boosting this real high at the 10 kilohertz. I boosted it by 12 dB. Had a compressor and a limiter on that as well. But the most important thing here, I think, was uh, the routing to the plate, because that gave it that extra space. So it sounds like we have some claves and a little bit of a shaker going on there as well. All just adding to the atmosphere there. All right, so let's get into the first verse.
In a long, distant world, beauty was pure and heavenly sacred.
All right, so let's take a look at these lead vocals here. So let's solo them by themselves and see what they sound like.
In a long, distant world, beauty was pure and heavenly sacred.
So it was it's a very delicate vocal, but as you'll hear later when we get to the second section, or what I call the chorus, it becomes very powerful and aggressive. But I needed to keep both of those senses, the delicate nature of the first verse and the second verse, but also the power in the chorus. So I went here with the Joe Ciccarelli vocal strip, and that actually took care of almost everything I needed to process with these vocals. So this one had a little bit of noise on it as well. I put a denoiser on, and then what was going on here with the Ciccarelli vocal strip, had a high pass filter up to 110, needed some de-essing, so I had that up there as well. This comes with 3 compressors, and this is parallel compression going on here. This also has a wet and dry knob, so I had it set for 60%, so the compression wasn't taking hold of the entire vocal. We still got some of the dry signal coming through. The first compressor was an 1176. Second one was a Fairchild, and the third one was a very heavy parallel compression compressor. Um, so let's see these all working in action here. Also had the reverb and the delay on this as well. So we had a plate reverb, a little bit of modulation. I put it was a 16th reverb here. And then I added a little bit of presence in the air section. So this is going to be the highs, probably about the 10K up, just to give it some more of a lift. So let's see what this is doing once I start the vocals.
In a long, distant world, beauty was pure and heavenly sacred.
All right, now let's turn that off and see what it sounds like with it not on there at all.
Tribulations, looting treasures, We see our angels falling.
Let's go back and forth so you can hear the difference between the Joe Ciccarelli channel strip or vocal strip on and off.
Tribulations, looting treasures. We see our angels falling. Tribulations, looting treasures. We see our angels falling.
So it gave it a lot of space and a lot of character out of this vocal strip, which I thought was a perfect choice for this particular vocal. And I also have a Kramer tape emulation on here as well. And I mainly use this for the saturation. I got a decent amount of saturation on this to give it some character as well. So let's keep going with the piece.
Tribulations. But when they're gone, beauty shows up. We can now contemplate her without our senses. And I wonder, is beauty really gone?
All right, so a beautiful chorus there. And that's the really powerful part of his lead vocals that I wanted to retain. And that Joe Ciccarelli vocal strip really took care of that, I think, with all the compression, the parallel compression that was going on there. The drums down here, when the snare kicked in, that added a lot of space as well. Let's take a listen to just the drums during the chorus. So that snare, I really wanted to have a lot of space with that one. So that's why it's got that plate on there. And let's just take a listen to it with all the effects off and no plate. I had a lot of plate on there and see what that sounds like. Yeah, not a lot going on there. So after I add the effects back in and the plate, you can hear the major difference. And then in the mix, and then as far as the toms go, I wanted those to be really big and full, like you're in a big hall. So yes, I did use a hall reverb here, and all I've got is a little bit of compression on each of these toms and boosting those lows a lot. Looks like I've got almost 6 dB up on 50 hertz there, and I'm not high passing them at all. But here's what the toms sound like by themselves. So really big, really full. Let's hear what that sounds like in the mix there with the song.
But when they're gone,
I think that came out pretty good. All right, so let's keep going. We did the chorus. Let's get to this instrumental. All right, so this whole instrumental is about that cello solo that we had going on there. Almost sounded like a violin. It's playing really, really high. So what I had on the cello here, again, I had some noise in there, so I got rid of that. And then I used serial compression here. I used 1176 followed by an LA2A. And then I put the EQ after. I just high passed it there. And then all the strings I have routed to a room. It already had a little bit of reverb on it, but I wanted just a little bit more to give it some space. So let's hear what that sounds like by itself. And something to note on here too, on the LA2A, I drove the gain a little bit more to give it a little bit of more grit, um, a little bit more bite to the solo. So with that, with the two compressors off, here's what you get. It sounds good, but it just sounds like it was lacking a little bit of life. So with those compressors on, I think it brought it to life just a little bit more. And then we had this viola accompaniment here, which I thought was really nice to complement the cello there. And all I had on this was some denoiser, an LA2A compressor, and then high passing out to get rid of the lows. And then I panned them left and right so you get the stereo effect for space. All right, so there was the string section. Let's keep going with the mix.
In a long, distant world, beauty was pure, heavenly, sacred. In a long, distant world, just
And I love in this piece, you can hear those little subtle background effects coming in, which you heard right here. I believe this is where they came in. Oh, not there, not the vocals. This must be up in the guitar area. This motif for sure comes in several times throughout the piece, and I think is also a very defined part of this piece.
in a long.
A very unique character to that. Let's see what we got here with the electrics. Yeah, beautiful accompaniment there. When we got into verse 2, here's the acoustic accompaniment, same as we had before. I love that panning effect that he had going on there. Really nice there. Some rhythm here. Very nice there. We had the strings, lead.
Long.
All right, so we got through there. Let's hit up the second chorus here. See what we got going on here. We had some background vocals. Let's focus in on those a little bit when we get to this chorus.
But when they're gone, beauty shows. We can now contemplate her without our senses.
All right, so let's take a look at some of these vocal effects in the backgrounds here. So the background going into the chorus.
When they're gone.
Beautiful background accompaniment there. I have this routed to a plate. I have a de-esser on here, some general EQ, LA2A compressor, and just for some glue of all of these backgrounds together. And then I got the Kramer tape on there as well. And that is adding a little bit of saturation there, and that's all that's doing. Um, let's see for the vocal effects here, which is again more background during the chorus. A really unique vocal effect there. So I had those pan left and right by 50%, just some denoiser and some LA2A on there. This effect down here. That vocoder effect was really cool. So I liked that. Okay, but moving on. All right. There we go. Let's get to the next instrumental section. Again, same thing, all about the cello and the strings there. And we had a little bit of that electric lead coming in. Let's get to this, what I call the pre-outro. Yeah, so that vocal line there, I remember Emmanuel specifically wanted that pulled back a little bit because he didn't want that to overpower the instrumental. He just wanted the vocals in the background. And you can see here, I had considered adding a vocal rider onto here, but I decided not to do that. So it has the same settings as the regular lead. Let's get to the outro section here. All right. Okay, so we had some of those effects starting there that we'll get to in a minute. So we had the regular background vocals here, just it subtly in the background here, saying just the long distant world, becoming very atmospheric. We had that piano come in though, back here, and that effect sounded like this. So not a lot going on, just in the background. And I had on this just a little bit of a high pass filter. I boosted the highs by eight decibels there at the 10K. A little bit of compressor here, and then I put a widener on this as well to give it some more space. And then at the end, during one of the last revisions, Emmanuel sent me this other track, which was a second piano, which we layered on top. A beautiful top line to that. So I pan these 40% right and 25% left for these pianos. And I did the same thing on that one that I did the other one. All right, so that ending there, that we worked on for quite a while. He wanted this long distant world to become very atmospheric and as out of this world. So here's how I got that effect. So on these, I have the regular denoiser, LA2A, and a high pass. But where I'm routing them to, though, is where the effect really happens. So I'm sending them to a hall reverb, a 16th note delay, and I put room reverb IK on there. I don't know why, but that's actually going to the Valhalla Supermassive, which is probably the first time I've actually used this in a mix for the special effects. So let's hear what those sound like by themselves. So that really created that spinning around your head effect of it becoming completely out of this world. A really special effect there. Let's take a listen to what that would sound like with none of those effects on it at all. So I'm going to take the routing off of all of these and hear what that sounds like pre-effect. Very dry, not a lot going on. So these effects really added to the end of this piece. All right, and that's the end of the piece. So there's the breakdown for Emmanuel Da Silva's Is Beauty Really Gone? An absolute beautiful piece. If you liked it and you haven't heard it yet, go take a listen to it. The link's in the description. And if you thought this video was helpful, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Happy mixing.